Assalamualaikum. My name is Dr. Azimah. I will start this presentation by presenting the definition of supply chain and supply chain management. Supply chain is defined as an entire system of producing and delivering of product or services from the very beginning stage of sourcing the raw materials to the final delivery of the product or services to end users. For supply chain management is an active management of supply chain activities to maximize customer value and achieve a sustainable competitive advantage. There are a few reasons why a company should understand its supply chain. First, mapping out a supply chain is one of the critical steps in performing an external analysis in a strategic planning process. External analysis means examining the industry environment of a company, including factors such as competitive structure, competitive position dynamics, and history. The primary purpose of external analysis is to determine the opportunities and threats in an industry or any segment that will drive profitability, growth, and volatility. Next, it helps a company define its own market and decide where it wants to be in the future. The supply chain also enables a company to understand others that are involved in each of the stages. Objectives of supply chain management. First is to maximize overall value generated. Next, to look for source of cost and revenue. And lastly, to ensure the merchandise is produced and distributed in the right quantities, location, and at the right time. There are two types of supply chain, which are generic supply and supply chain for an e-commerce company. For generic supply, it begins with the sourcing and extraction of raw materials. The raw materials are then taken by a logistic provider to a supplier, which act as the wholesaler. The materials are taken to a manufacturer that refine and process them into a finished product. Then it goes to a distributor that wholesale the finished product, which is next delivered to a retailer. The retailer sells the product in a store to consumers. Once the consumers buy it, this completes the cycle, but it's the demand test that then goes back and drives the production of more raw materials and the cycles continue. Okay. For the supply chain for an e-commerce, it starts when a customer places an order for a product. The product order is being processed by technology such as a checkout card and order system or third-party product. The payment processes then come in and deal with payment transaction for the order, which actually opens up a new supply chain. The payment process use their own system, but in most cases, third parties such as PayPal are employed and then involve banks and other providers. When the product order is placed, the warehouse receives the order and ensure the product is ready for delivery. The warehousing company can be either in-house or a third-party logistic provider. The order then goes from the warehouse to the shipping company. After shipping, the package arrives at the customer's door and the customers receive it. Now we move to the definition of supplier. Supplier is an entity that supplies goods and services to another organization. Supplier is part of the supply chain of a business, which may provide the bulk of the value contained within its products. For the managing supplier is a process that ensures maximum value is received for the money that an organization pays to its supplier. Because these suppliers play a part in the smooth running of an organization, it is important for both supplier and organization to engage properly and effectively. Importance of managing a good relationship with suppliers. First, it helps the company to minimize supplier and inventory related costs. It is important for a company which focuses on cost leadership. Cost leadership is a strategy that creating a competitive advantage by having a lowest cost of operating in the industry. Next, it can minimize the cost. A company may improve their production lead time as they have good relationship with them that make the cost can be minimized. Lastly, quality of food will be guaranteed. Quality of food also can be guaranteed in good condition as there will be no quality issue when a company have good relationship with supplier. Okay, next is definition of managing inventory. Managing inventory is defined as the key element in supply chain management to help business to get the lowest raw material or finished good cost. It is important to have managing inventory because of the management works to facilitate such as managing purchases from customer and suppliers, storing inventory and controlling the sale of good and order fulfillment.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Shabila binti Zalani, and I'm going to be presenting the history of the supply chain management and also the reasons of why SCM is actually popularly adopted among the organizations. So first, I'm going to start with the history of the supply chain management, which is taught back in ancient times up until the 18th century, where the supply chain of the rum were slaves who were moved from the Africa to the Caribbean to actually grow the sugarcane, which originally came from the India, and it ended in distilleries in the US. And meanwhile, for the logistics, back then the ancient empires across the world, from the Peru to Rome, actually left their mark on the development of the logistics as a field in its own right, which they introduced all roads, organized labor, transport, and also the armies. And back then it was kept mostly local due to the lack of the largest transport options and also the high cost of moving goods all around the world. And then for the seismic shifts, back then in 1920s, by Ford himself, he came up with the idea of producing consistent products on a larger scale with increased efficiency, which helps in changing the trade and also the supply chains. Where there's a development of the containerization, which it helps in increasing the quantity of available space for goods and also helps increasing the speed of the freight movement, while actually helps in decreasing the cost. And also with the introduction of the barcoding, back then barcode was adapted to become an internationally used standard, which it helps in monitoring of the supply chain both globally and also internationally. And then we can see for the technological advances here. Back in 1980s, the innovation of the personal computer was actually the catalyst for more new tech, such as the spreadsheets, optimization model, and also algorithm that actually helps in predicting the logistics issues for a supply chain. And also the development of ERPs, which stands for the Enterprise Resource Planning. It helps businesses to use software to manage all of its activities, which included automating the business functions, centralizing the information, managing finances, and also helps in tracking the performance. And then for now until up to the upcoming future, the integration of technologies, for example, like the blockchain, is also another area where supply chain management might actually see a significant change in both operational requirements and each process along the supply chain. For example, we can see from Hong Kong, where a shipping company has been successfully using a smart contract and also cryptocurrency to actually combat unreliable deliveries, and also the example from the Walmart, who used blockchain to actually help in tracing the Chinese port supply chain. And now we move on to the reasons on why ICM is actually popularly adopted by the corporations. So first, it helps in boosting the customer service. So it helps in the aspect of in the right delivery time, which is, for example, the customers would expect the products to be delivered on time. For example, the customer satisfaction would diminishes if the pizza delivery is actually 2 hours late, or either the Christmas presents are delivered on December of 26th, which we all know that the Christmas is actually celebrated on 25th. So of course, it's much later than you would expect it to be. And then the second reason is that it helps in reducing the operating costs in the aspect of decreasing the purchasing costs. For example, the retailers depend on supply chains to quickly deliver expensive products to avoid holding costly inventories in the stores any longer than necessary. For example, electronic stores require fast delivery of the 60-inch flat panel plasma HD TVs to avoid high inventory costs. And lastly, the reasons on why HCM is probably adopted by the corporations is it helps improving the financial position in the aspect of increases the profit leverage. Okay, so the firms, of course, it values supply chain managers because they help in controlling, also reducing the supply chain costs. And this would eventually help in resulting the dramatic increases in the firm profits. Okay, so for example, the US consumers eat approximately around 2.7 billion packages of cereal annually. So the decrement of the US cereal supply chain costs just 1 cent per single box will result in $30 million saved industry-wide, as 30 billion boxes of cereal flowed through the improved supply chain over a 5-year period. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hidayah binti Muhammad Hauza, and I'm going to continue with the usefulness and limitation of supply chain management. I'm going to explain the usefulness of supply chain management first. For the first usefulness it is cost efficiency. Supply chain management assists the company in achieving cost efficiency since it can lower various costs like production costs, packaging costs, warehousing, and transportation costs, and avoids any wastage of goods by facilitating timely delivery. It minimizes the overall operating expenses and enhances the overall profitability. The second usefulness is it can enhance output. Supply managers will monitor all production processes in order to ensure all resources used are efficiently utilized and to avoid any wastage. This can help the management to maximize the overall output. The third usefulness of supply chain management is it can avoid any delays in process. All materials are procured in a timely manner to ensure uninterrupted production of products. All delivery and logistic services are regulated to promote delivery at the right time and at the right location, hence can avoid any delays. Next, it is also helpful in identifying problem areas. It enables company to recognize its issues that are negatively impacting its reputation and profitability. Supply chain management can assist managers to track the performance of each department easily and identify which department is lacking in carrying out their duties. Otherwise, other departments will blame each other if any problem arises since it is difficult for them to detect the issues. And last but not least, better collaboration, where the process of supply chain management bring better collaboration among distinct parties of businesses. It focuses on developing a proper communication channel within business. Smooth flow of information among stakeholders like employees, customers, suppliers, and distribution enhance understanding, which leads to create a better collaboration. Let's move on to the limitation of the supply chain management. The first limitation is that it is expensive to implement. It requires large investment in terms of time, money, and other resources that become unaffordable for small businesses. The second one is it is complicated, where the process of supply chain management involves numerous complexities as it involves several departments within the organization. It may lead to create confusion and hamper the normal functioning of business. Employees may feel hesitant and demotivated to accept this concept as it is new to them, thereby giving rise to several other difficulties. Supply chain management also requires trained and professional staff. Supply chain management requires qualified and trained human resources for its effective executive within the company. Company need to incur heavy expenses for acquiring such task force that is professional and highly skilled. Small companies may find it unfavorable for their implementation. And last but not least, it is lack of reliability. Supply chain management lacks of reliability as it is completely dependent upon the mode of information exchange among several departments. If there is any instance of inaccurate information sharing by any other department, then it will have adverse effects on performance of whole supply chain. Now I'm going to explain the process involved in order to implement supply chain management. So what is supply chain management process? In supply chain management process, there is a supply chain management building blocks where there are the strategic planning, demand planning, supply planning, procurement, manufacturing, warehousing, order fulfillment, and transportation business processes. Let's move to the first step, which is the strategic planning. The strategic planning process involves the strategic supply chain design and strategic sourcing. The strategic supply chain design process is the design, evaluation, and optimization of the supply chain model used in the planning applications. Every part of supply chain, such as locations, transportation lanes, resources, and products, are modeled to executed planning based on this network. Meanwhile, strategic sourcing process helps to identify a minimized set of core suppliers with whom to establish strategic relationships and also define the parameters that drive procurement execution. The second step is demand planning process. Demand planning process involves forecasting, life cycle planning, promotion planning, and consensus demand planning. For forecasting process, forecasting predicts future demand based on historical and judgmental data. Forecasts can be created in using different methods such as statistical methods, causal analysis, human judgment, or combination of all of the above. For life cycle planning process, it involves planning the product life cycle. Life cycle planning simulates based on the forecasting data the launch, growth, maturity, and discontinuation phase of different products. And for promotion planning process, it enables to plan promotions or other special events separately from the rest of your forecast. And for consensus demand planning process, it creates a consensus demand plan by integrating all available information. This is a result of combining various data such as forecasting, promotion budget, sales plan, and etc. The third step is supply planning process, where planning process involves safety stock planning, supply networking planning, outsourcing, distribution planning, customer collaboration, and supply collaboration. For safety stock planning process, it arrives the appropriate level of safety stock inventory for all intermediate and finished products at their respective locations to meet a target service level. And for supply network planning process, it is a process calculates quantities to be delivered to the locations to match customer demand and maintain desired service level. For the fourth step, it is a procurement process where it involves purchase order processing, receipt confirmation, and invoice verification. Purchase order processing, it fulfills the direct procurement requirements through the sourcing, issuance, and confirmation of purchase orders. For receipt confirmation processing, it informs other departments about the received and confirmed quantity of ordered goods. Meanwhile, the invoice verification process receives, enters, and checks vendors' invoice for correctness. For step number 5 is manufacturing process. It involves production planning, detailed scheduling, and manufacturing execution. For production planning or detailed scheduling process, it is a process to support the process of assigning production orders of resources in a specific sequence and time frame. And for manufacturing execution, it is a process to support the process of capturing actual production information from the shop floor to support production control and costing processes. Let's move to the step number 6, which is warehousing process, where it involves inbound processing, outbound processing, cross-docking, warehousing, storage, and physical inventory. For inbound processing, it compromises all the steps of an internal procurement processes that occurs when the goods are received. For outbound processing, it prepares and ships out the goods to their destination. For cross-docking, it is a process merchandise in a distribution center or warehouse where the goods are brought from the good receipt directly to goods issued without being stored. For warehousing and storage, it is a process warehouse internal movement and storage of materials and physical inventory to support all activities for planning and executing the physical inventory. For step number 7 is order fulfillment process. It involves the sales order processing and billing business process. The sales order processing allows the order entry pricing and scheduling order for fulfillment, and for billing process, consider all activities from issuing the invoice to the incoming payment. For the last step, which is the transportation processes, where it involves the transportation planning, transportation execution, and freight costing processes. For transportation planning process, it creates an optimized executable transportation plan for the enterprise. And for transportation execution process, it covers the complete and integrated solution process to create, execute, and monitor shipments. And for the freight costing process, it calculates and settles the freight cost.
Hello everyone, my name is Nardini Amalina and I will continue the next part of this presentation, which is the company that practices supply chain management technique. One of the companies that use this technique is Intel Corporation. A little bit background of this company. Intel Corporation is an American multinational and technology company founded on 18 July 1968 by Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore. It is one of the world's largest and highest valued semiconductor chip manufacturer. Its main business is supplying processors for computer system manufacturers such as Dell, Lenovo, and HP. This company has applied supply chain management technique to ensure the efficiency of manufacturing and delivering its products to the consumers. By practicing this technique, it has gained many benefits in various aspects. Here are the benefits gained by Intel through supply chain management technique. First, Intel can manufacture high quality of products due to best materials sourced from its suppliers. As a developed company in technology industry, Intel always communicates with the suppliers about its expectations and requirements for the material supply. To ensure the quality of raw materials are not compromised, the suppliers are bound to compliance of code of conduct such as Responsible Business Alliance Code of Conduct that cover a wide range of aspects. By complying the code of conduct, the suppliers can supply the materials according to ethical standards while maintaining their quality. The durability of every Intel products also are guaranteed to be long-lasting. Next, Intel able to maintain good relationship with its suppliers. Intel always provides regular feedbacks on the supplier's overall progress and achievements. Intel has introduced a program named Supplier Continuous Quality Improvement, where suppliers with outstanding performances are eligible to join the program. The program, to some extent, retains the potential suppliers. At the same time, Intel can receive the best quality of materials with affordable price. Intel also will not experience difficulties where supply of materials being cut off due to good relationship with the suppliers. Besides that, supply chain management technique has increased the efficiency of Intel Corporation in power consumption. Information and communication technology is an essential system in manufacturing and storing its products. Therefore, Intel has invested in smart technologies to reduce ICT footprints. Some examples of smart ICT-enabled energy efficiency are building management systems and Internet of Things sensors. The usage of smart technologies enable Intel to reduce energy consumption of industrial processes and greater incorporation of renewable power can be achieved. The last benefit of practicing supply chain management technique is Intel able to preserve the nature. Intel uses minerals in manufacturing its products. Intel compiles usage data and non-mineral risk as well as prevalence of sourcing from conflict-affected and high-risk areas or CHAHRAS. Intel compared the analysis done and its current work to select next set of minerals. The analysis actually helps the nature to prevent the current minerals used from running out and also guide the suppliers in obtaining alternative minerals. The additional minerals, however, maintain the sourcing standard in manufacturing high quality of products. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation to the next presenter.
I am Rashika Adlina and I will continue to present about suggestions that we can do to make improvement on technique use. So the first suggestion that we suggest is to optimize the company-owned inventory. We can always check the quantity of the company-owned inventory. The company keep exactly what they need, nothing more than that. It is because we can say that the cost of holding and storing inventory is quite high. For example, the inventory holding cost could represent among 60% of an item's cost that is held in inventory for 1 year. The management also need to include demand planning and forecasting to optimize company-owned inventory. Other than that, another way to optimize inventory is by using truck scales for effective management. The scales provide accurate measurements which can help you determine the right quantity of inventory to store. So we need to start by optimizing company-owned inventory for the improvement on the supply chain management. Next suggestion is to improve distribution work. There are two approaches that we can use to improve the distribution network. Firstly is by using cluster approach. For example, grouping charts, graphs, and similar documents together. This helps in observing the processes for any specific company function. The other approach is holistic approach. This approach involves reviewing the essential components of the distribution network. It also focuses on understanding how the components work in group. So we can say that distribution is a key driver of overall profitability because it has direct impact on the supply chain cost and customer satisfaction. The next suggestion is to make chain council. They can set up the governing council that offers a clear strategy for functionality and efficiency. The councils aim to give directions and align the supply chain strategy with the company's core goals. The council helps in removing barriers within the organization. It also improves the business cross-functional communication. It creates opportunity for leaders to provide effective supply chain management in future projects. The supply chain council can help in removing barriers within the organization. They also can increase teamwork in management as they cooperate together. The last improvement that we suggest is to build healthy supplier relationship. It is very important to build a healthy and good relationship, as we can say that like the company's relationship with supplier affects the success of the supply chain. We can say like it is easy enough to find supplier, like you choose supplier that cost efficient and easy to work with to maximize the value of business relationship. Of course, like modern business practice, it becomes much more complicated than that. If the company manage to find the supplier that is the best fit for them, they need to build a healthy relationship with them. They need to cultivate and maintain the supplier relationships on an ongoing basis, even after the deals are finalized. They must focus on forming strategies to maintain healthy supplier relationship. For example, pay them on time. It will prove to the supplier that the company is reliable. Keep them regularly informed and up to date. Make goals for continuing value, measuring performance, and maintaining conflict resolution. I can say like that if you appreciate them, let them know. If something's not working for you, let them know. It helps to build a healthy supplier relationship. The next slide is for the conclusion. In conclusion, we can say that the supply chain management is an important part for organization as it improves the effectiveness, efficiency, management of resources, etc. It also establishes prominent relation with the stakeholders, customer, and etc. and helps achieving satisfaction of the customer and goals for the company. Thank you.